BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
Hello, this is the Scottish Football Podcast. I'm Iona Ballantyne, and it may be Friday the 13th of September, but could tomorrow be even scarier for Stephen Naismith?
Callum McGregor to the edge of the penalty area. He's looking up at the goal. Oh, that is magnificent! That is absolutely magnificent from the Celtic captain!
Will we dare to peek at what potential horrors could lay in store for Hearts as they visit Celtic? Also,
don't know how many times you've been to this ground, Craig, but you never fail to enjoy winning here, do you? I love it.
Can Craig Levein return to haunt Hibs once again? And
this could be an opportunity for Tannadice. Goal!
They've bared their fangs already this season, but do Dundee United smell blood as Rangers come to town?
The Scottish Football Podcast.
So, joining me for this one, former Scotland captain Gemma and former Motherwell, Partick Thistle and Northern Ireland defender Stephen Craigan. As I mentioned, it is Friday the 13th. Are we feeling lucky today, you two? Unlucky?
I didn't even know it was Friday the 13th.
Well, welcome.
Let's hope it's a lucky day, Iona.
Stephen, are you superstitious?
Well, I have to say I'm like Gemma. I had no idea it was that day, so I'll try not to think about it, put it that way.
Okay, well, I hope both of you have a good Friday anyway. Now, there is so much to discuss with Gemma and Stephen, but before all of that, let's quickly run through the latest headlines. Well, Hibs have signed former Newcastle, Crystal Palace and Stoke forward Dwight Gale on a one-year deal. The 34-year-old was a free agent after leaving Derby County at the end of last season. It's been reported that after 3 months of discussions, Rangers and Aberdeen will need an SPFL tribunal to settle Conor Barron's transfer fee. The 22-year-old moved to Ibrox under freedom of contract in the summer. Well, Motherwell's Lennon Miller and David Watson of Kilmarnock have been named among the top 100 teenagers in world football by a leading sports research body. Speaking of talented Scottish teenagers, winger Ben Doak has revealed that Middlesbrough manager Michael Carrick's personality and calmness persuaded him to make the move to Teesside on a season-long loan from Liverpool. And Arbroath have confirmed the appointment of Colin Hamilton and David Gold as permanent co-player managers. The pair had been in charge on an interim basis at Gayfield for the last month. So it is Friday the 13th. I'm going to do something really scary for the two of you. I am ripping up the running order for today's podcast. I'm going to let the two of you decide what we talk about. This could go anywhere, I can imagine. Gemma, you are up first. Where would you like to take this podcast?
Now that's quite an open-ended question. I could take it many places.
No, I was actually going to say we're going to talk about fixtures. What one do you want to start with? But where would you actually? You
got scared there, Iona, didn't you? You got a little bit scared.
I didn't know where you were going to go.
No, yeah, okay. So I'm going to take it. I'm going to go with the two European adventurers this year. I think St Mirren versus Kilmarnock. I think it's a really interesting fixture. Both of them have had similar adventures in Europe. Both of them are not blessed with the biggest squad. They've had their challenges. Both of them have had to play both of them had to play Celtic and Aberdeen in that space. And at the moment, we've got St Mirren sitting 7th and Killie sitting 12th, which I think probably a slightly false position for Killie, based on what we know they can do. So it's really interesting. I think Paul Sheeran talked about the international break being a reset and an opportunity for Kilmarnock to kind of say, right, that part of the season's gone. Now let's kind of reset and shift our focus to the league. They've had challenges scoring. Killie, they've been creating chances, and I think Vassal's miss against Hibs is an example of like opportunities kind of going a begging. But going into this game against St Mirren, we kind of know that Derek McInnes is, I think it's been muted, the bogeyman of St Mirren. Wherever he goes, he seems to get results. And we know the calibre of the squad that Stephen Robinson's managed to put together, and he's got a little familiar face back in there in terms of the kind Kevin Van Veen didn't have the best on loan season last year in Kilmarnock, but we know from his exploits with Motherwell that he can do a job in Scottish football. So I just think there's lots of interesting subplots in that match, and it's a huge one. I think it's a huge one for Kelly in terms of mentally getting themselves off that table, bottom of the table. And the flip side to that is we could see the end of the day, end of the weekend with Hearts sitting at the bottom, because I'm not going to touch on that one because I said I would touch on this one. But if I'm Stephen Naismith and I'm heading to Celtic and I'm looking at that fixture schedule, that could be a pretty sorrow sight at the end of the weekend for the Edinburgh team.
Well, we will come to that one, but Stephen, particularly for Kilmarnock at bottom of the table, are you expecting to see a different side this weekend?
Well, if not this weekend, then certainly in the coming weeks. I think we witnessed enough last season of Kilmarnock about their resilience, their defiance, how hard they are to play against. And I think Derek's problem has been he hasn't managed to get probably his first choice 11. I know managers always say they don't have a first choice. Derek will have a first choice 11 in his mind. But with a number of red cards they've had, certainly domestically, they've had to play games with 10 men or 10 players. He hasn't managed to get his full quota on the following week. He's had injuries, he's had niggles. And sometimes that comes from because they have been playing so many games in quick succession at the start of the season. The players have taken a little while to get up to speed. So Derek won't panic. He's an experienced manager. He's been there before. I think that late goal 2 weeks ago against Hibs probably made the international break a little bit easier. He knows they've got improvement to make, and I think they will. You know, there's too many good players, too many experienced players. Guys like Mario Watkins and Kyle Vassell. Lewis Mayo has been the backbone of that squad since he went on loan and then signed permanently. Daniel Armstrong is always a threat. So you aren't going to keep these kind of guys quiet. On the flip side for Stephen Robinson, who's actually a good friend of mine, I don't think he knows his first choice 11 because so many players have been underperforming or been inconsistent. So I think once he gets that settled, once he works out what direction he wants to go in there, I think they will be a force to be reckoned with. I see these two sides really pushing top six come match day 33. But Gemma's right. Tomorrow is such a crucial game. Both of them would do anything for a win just to pick up that little bit of momentum and that feel-good factor.
They certainly will, and a tough one to call too. But Stephen, I'm actually going to ask you where you want to take this next. What team, what match do you want to talk about?
Probably I would head to Tannadice on Sunday.
Yeah.
Only because the pressure on Philip Clement to simply find a way to win a game of football is absolutely huge. Rangers will always tell you, Rangers fans, you always hear them talking, we have to win every game. And you do. I get that to an extent. But when you've lost an Old Firm game and been as poor as what they were, there's huge question marks around the squad. Not so much the manager, just because he signed a new deal. I think he'll be here long term. There's no problem with that. But it's simply win at all costs and performance has to go out the window. If they didn't win that game, they could be sitting 8 points behind their city rival Celtic after 5 games. I'm not saying it would be insurmountable, but it's not far away from that because Celtic look so far ahead of everyone else at this moment in time. I expect multiple changes from the Rangers side. It's a shame because I haven't even touched on Dundee United yet. They've been so good, but I'm going through the negatives of Rangers first before I get to Dundee United. I expect multiple changes because you can't expect your team to perform as poor as that and not make 4 or 5 changes in the game. I'd imagine Bajrami will come in and use the new Albanian signing. Igmani looked okay when he came on. He had a couple of little glimpses. Tom Lawrence, Nico Raskin, Leo Balogun. Those kind of guys I would imagine would come into the reckoning. So Philip Clement has got big issues on Sunday to make sure they find a way to win the game. The fundamentals in the Old Firm game probably weren't there. The hard work, the spirit, the heart, the desire, the courage, the bravery, everything that probably Rangers fans expect from their players, the basics of hard work, and I'm not too sure they showed that in abundance, put it that way. But for Jim Goodwin, it's been a sensational start in the season for him. When you think back, 17, 18, 19 months ago, he gets sacked from Aberdeen and he takes a job at Dundee United when they look as if they're going to be relegated, and they are. He puts his reputation on the line. He gets them out of the Championship. Not all guns and glory, but they managed to get it done. The transformation since the start of the season has been absolutely terrific. The home fans have sold out their tickets, which tells you the club are galvanised. Jim said yesterday himself there's a real unity. Everyone's pushing in the one direction. It's been a long time since that happened at Tannadice, so that's why I think it's going to be a cracker.
It's quite incredible to see what they've done, like you just mentioned, with Jim Goodwin and turning things around. And For Rangers away to Dundee United, Gemma, I mean, they've only won one of their last 7 away league games. They've drawn 3 and lost 3. That's the fewest wins over a run of 7 away league outings. Do you want to guess who the last manager to do that was?
I'm trying to still understand what you just said, Iona.
Is it too early? Do you want me to go again?
Right. No, I don't want to guess. I just want you to tell me.
Mark Warburton.
Oh.
Also won in 7. That was September 2016.
It's an absolutely horrible place to go. Tannadice is a cauldron. You get a full stadium. You get those Dundee United fans going. It's not a nice place to go, and it's certainly not a nice place to go if you're struggling. And you'd have to say, yeah, it's early on in the season, but you'd have to say all indications are that Rangers are struggling. And I would be up for this if I was Dundee United. I would really be up for this, particularly as Stephen said, the form that they've shown at the beginning of this season, the acquisitions they've done in the transfer market. They've come in and they've enhanced that squad, and it pains me to say it's probably a really nice time to be a Dundee United fan right now, because their team are playing good football and they're getting joy, and there is something around the club at the moment in terms of where they've been, where they've come back from, a regalvanisation, if you will. So that is a really interesting match come Sunday, and I'm not entirely sure which way it'll go.
Mm-hmm. And Stephen, for Philippe Clement too. I mean, getting a win for them at the moment at this stage in the season, and like you say, kind of climbing back up the table, that is crucial at this point.
It is, because there's always expectation at Rangers. Unfortunately, everyone else in the league, the Rangers don't measure themselves against anyone other than their city rival Celtic. I think it's a little bit naive at times because you focus so much on one team that you take your eye off the ball sometimes. But there's no doubt that it hasn't been the start of the season he would have wanted. It was quite clear at the end of last season the squad needed to improve. I don't think it has at this stage. It's changed and they've lowered the average age and they've got rid of a lot of big earners. But it's going to be a slow burner. I think for Rangers fans, it's going to be not just a few weeks of suffering and pain, it could be a couple of seasons, because you only have to look across at the rivals that everyone talks about, Celtic, and they look so far ahead. You think of transfer deadline day, Rangers sold 2 players for £900,000 and Celtic spent 17 million on 2 players. That shows you the gulf in finances that are available between the two. So, Philippe Clement has been dealt a poor hand, but he signed a new contract. He's committed to the long term. He's going to make mistakes along the way, and Rangers are going to lose games. It's going to be tough to watch. But tomorrow, simply just dig deep, on Sunday, and somehow manage to get 3 points and delay that suffering for a few weeks, possibly.
Well, it's going to be very interesting to see what happens at Tannadice on Sunday. Now, Gemma, where would you like to take this next?
Oh, choices. I'm going to go up. I'm going to go up to Pittodrie. I'm going to go up to Aberdeen versus Motherwell. Got Jimmy Thielen just been given Manager of the Month, and he's had. You have to admit he's had a nice start to the Premiership. He's been lucky. He's not really had to come up. He's not had that momentum stalled by having to face a Celtic or a Rangers yet. So they have Motherwell on Saturday. Motherwell not doing too bad themselves, but it'll be interesting to see Aberdeen if they can continue this momentum leading into one of those big Old Firm matches, because I think it's a real test of the mettle there. But yeah, it's been interesting to see how he's done, how he's come in, and what I'd be interested is around about the whole club change, because we obviously last year the club were in turmoil. We had to do this big internal report. We were looking at the structures of the club. So on the surface, the first team seems to be operating well. What would be really interesting to see is what influence he has behind the scenes in terms of shaping the pathways in the club, and if that will have a long-term effect. But in the short term, he's done a good job coming in. He's got the club and the fan base revitalised. Tough test against Motherwell, but it'd be interesting to see if they can continue that momentum, especially if Rangers can't pick up something at Dundee United. It really, really turns the screw.
Well, that is the thing, like you say, with Jimmy Thielen, 9 wins in a row for Aberdeen under him. Stephen, do you think they can keep that up against Motherwell?
I do, just because they're a team who have shown they can win in different ways. That 97th minute winner just before the international break up at Ross County just shows that his team aren't just a side you can turn up and always play well and score lots of goals. They can dig deep and they can hang on there. They can find a way to win games where they're possibly not at their best. Having someone like Kevin Nisbet back into this, getting back up to fitness will be a huge bonus for them. There's all the talk about Bojan Miovski will be a big loss. Papagai has managed to chip in with a couple of goals. Nisbet's shown what he can do. Eric Socker is a handful. And it's similar to Miovski in how he plays, but unfortunately doesn't have the goals to go along with it. So I think they will trust and believe that they can beat Motherwell. Jimmy Tulane, I think it's hard not to be impressed by him. You only have to look at the situation with Duke. The fact that he was away from the club for so long, he come back in, he's back into training. And during the press release that the club had, and Jimmy Tulane had some comments about it, just saying, it's like, paraphrasing, it's like having a member of your family who's made a mistake and you accept them and you allow them back in. That's it, dead. No one else is going to ask him any more questions. He doesn't want any distractions. He's fully focused on what he wants to do. And I think his players are fully reflective of that. The signings he's made, Gavin Malloy's been excellent. Sivert Nielsen, who he knows, has been very, very good. Toby Keskinen has been good, brings a little bit of entertainment, a little bit of excitement. So they will fancy it, but Motherwell have to go into that game full of belief. If you've won 3 games in a row, you've got to look around your dressing room and think, we can go up here and cause an upset. We can be the one that everyone's talking about come Saturday night, because everyone's talking about Aberdeen, so we can cause a little bit of an upset and we can show what we're all about. So that's why, yes, Aberdeen will be favourites, but quietly Motherwell will be going up there with a game plan. Under Stuart Kettlewell, they've been up and down at times, but it looks as if now he's more settled, or the players are more settled on how they want to play. So it should be a good game.
Mm-hmm. Stephen, can I ask, where would you like to take this next?
Well, I'm full of positivity on Friday the 13th, so I'm going to look over to, I'm going to go back to Glasgow and look at Stephen Naismith and the pressure that he's coming under. I'll take it to Celtic Park against Hearts, and I think that's the game everyone's probably not talking about, but looking forward to seeing, because Gemma's spot on when she said earlier on that the Hearts could find themselves bottom come the weekend. If this becomes a disastrous heavy defeat for Stephen Naismith, the pressure is certainly going to increase even more than it's been. And it seems inconceivable that you can finish third and suddenly 5 games into the finish third one season, 5 games into the next season, you can be under all sorts of pressure. And I still think he's got a little bit of credit in the bank. We all know that the goodwill in football can disappear very, very quickly once the negative momentum starts to swing towards managing the pressure bills. It takes a brave board or a brave chief executive to hang on and to stay tight. The fact that he only signed a new contract a few weeks ago, there's no doubt that the players have underperformed. Much like Stephen Robinson, I'm not too sure what Stephen Naismith thinks his best 11 is. I'm not too sure if he knows what his best formation is. He's searching for it. His talisman isn't scoring goals. So everything that probably could go wrong for a manager at this moment in time is, and of course you're coming up against Celtic, who are blowing everyone away and are making the game look easy. So that's going to be a huge fixture for the Hearts manager.
That it has been such a difficult start for Hearts this season, Gemma. I mean, Celtic, that is such a tough game for them to go to when things are like this at the moment.
Oh, it is the harder game of the week, isn't it? Because this could be disastrous for Hearts. Celtic show no sign of letting up, being lenient for anyone. The exact opposite. They are in full throttle domination, annihilation of what's ever in front of them, and it's not about caring about what's happening to the opposition. Absolutely nothing whatsoever. I'm not really seeing anything from Hearts that suggests it's going to go any other way, and that's worrying. I've watched them a few times now, in Europe, out of Europe, and there's until he settles on what that formation is going to be, until he settles on personnel in that system to give a level of consistency and allow them to build, I think that's going to be a challenge. I really, really do. And we've seen it in a couple of games when he switches mid-game from formation, that it works, and I still don't understand why he just doesn't stick with the one formation. So this is huge. It's absolutely huge for Hearts, and it could be defining of their season in terms of which direction they go.
It's going to be a very difficult one for them tomorrow. But 2 more games, Ross County versus Dundee and Hibs versus St Johnstone. I mean, Gemma, even looking at Hibs, how much pressure is David Gray under, and how important is it for them to kind of get back to ways too.
So I know in football when things aren't going well, the pressure seems to heap on the manager, and I get that. But I think there's a bit of a bigger story here. I think there's, and we've heard it during this international break, the interview around about when investors coming in, ownership of the club, decisions that were made, how decisions were made, admitting it was a knee-jerk reaction to get rid of Jack Ross, etc. So I think the position that David Gray finds himself in is somewhat systematic of what's happened behind the scenes. Recruitment-wise, during the summer, it was about to... they had some big things to do. One was to shore up a leaky defence, and I haven't seen much sign of that or much confidence that's happened. They've just signed Dwight Gale. He's just come through the door. So there's another attacking option. But for me, being a former goalkeeper, that defence scares me a little bit. So Hibs themselves as a club, and you put David Gray in that, are under pressure. They're under pressure to perform. They're under pressure to show that the investment that's come through the door is worthy of being on that pitch for Hibs. And the investors and the owners are under pressure around about the decisions that they have made. Because I'm not entirely sure that they have been the best decisions. Even the transfer market just there, they went for McCowan, they went for Nesbitt, they didn't get them, but there didn't really seem to be a sequential second, third, fourth choice option that would bring anything additional to Hibs in that space. So I think that Hibs as a club are under huge pressure to try and start to turn that tide.
Now, before we go, there is a full fixture list in the SWPL on Sunday. Gemma, I just need to ask you, what game do you think we should be looking out for there?
I'm going to pick out Partick, Thistle versus Celtic. There's some interesting fixtures. I think that one's probably the one that sparks my attention. Celtic have been away doing Champions League exploits, and they're into that final qualification round. They've lost Chloe Craig to ACL, which is a huge miss for them in that defence. Partick Thistle have had a bit of a yo-yo start, but they were sensational against Motherwell last week. Celtic's league form has been good, but it's not been great. Milena Siddiqui would admit that herself. So you've got Celtic coming back from Europe. You've got Partick Thistle coming off a really good performance against Motherwell. You've got them, and that one, I think it's going to be back at Peters Hill as well, which is, even though it's going to have a new pitch, is still a really tight, windy place. That will be a tricky fixture, I think, for Celtic if we get the Partick Thistle that we know that can play against the likes of Celtic and Rangers and make it really, really difficult, which they've done for the last couple of seasons. So that has potential of being a bit of a banana skin.
All right, well, we cannot wait to see how things unfold there this weekend too. Now, the two of you, thank you so much for joining us this Friday morning, Friday the 13th. Will there be any scares this weekend? We will find out. Now, that is all we've got time for, but you can catch the full SWPL highlights on Monday at 7 on BBC Scotland. For now, though, as I said, thank you to Gemma and Stephen, and thank you for listening. Now, remember, Dunfermline versus Wraith Rovers is also on the BBC Scotland channel from 7:30 tonight. Sports Sound on BBC Radio Scotland will have all the live action across the weekend, and Sports Scene will bring you the highlights on Saturday, Sunday and Monday evenings. Now, of course, we'll be here with the Scottish Football Podcast every day, so to be alerted when new episodes are out. Subscribe on BBC Sounds and have push notifications turned on in your phone. We will see you next time. Goodbye.
This is the shocking moment English football has been dreading.
My name is Moses Swabu, and I used to be a professional footballer, but then I got in deep with organised crime and became a match fixer operating in the English League.
A match-fixing investigator has highlighted 2 matches he says appear to have suspicious betting patterns.
How honest are you going to be with me?
This is 100%. Join me for Sports Strangers Crimes presents Confessions of a Match Fixer. Listen on BBC Sounds.